On March 15, 1944, at the Imperial Japanese Navy Intelligence Headquarters within the Ada Communications Section, Commander Atsuso Kurihara anxiously studied an intercepted message. A third cup of bitter tea grew cold on his desk as he and his team, Japan's finest cryptanalysts, had spent 18 hours fruitlessly attempting to decipher what appeared to be tactical messages from the U.S. Marine Corps, obtained during operations in the Marshall Islands. The sounds emanating from the receivers defied every known analytical method. Yet, these were not merely random interferences. The nature of the intercepted communications clearly indicated structured military transmissions. Timing coincided with the start of American attacks, duration matched operational orders, and frequencies adhered to Marine Corps protocols. But the language itself remained utterly incomprehensible, bearing no resemblance to anything contained in their extensive archives of Allied communication systems. Kurihara commanded one of the world's largest electronic intelligence operations. Located 20 miles outside Tokyo, ADA employed 500 personnel, operating 118 radio receivers and 20 direction finders. His cryptanalysts had successfully deciphered American diplomatic correspondence, British naval messages, and numerous army codes. They had even penetrated the State Department's Purple Code before the attack on Pearl Harbor, providing Japan with vital intelligence in the early years of the war. But these Marine Corps messages proved impenetrable, representing a complete cryptographic failure. For 3 years of bloody warfare, despite successfully breaking numerous Allied ciphers, Japan's exceptionally capable cryptographers were unable to detect even a hint of pattern in the enigmatic messages. Kurihara, like all Japanese intelligence officers, could not have known he was intercepting a unique, unbreakable code in the entire history of military conflicts. This compelling story doesn't begin in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, but in the American Southwest, where the Navajo people had, for centuries, carefully preserved their language, unparalleled anywhere else in the world. The Navajo language, known as Diné Bizaad, is part of the Athabascan language family, and in 1940 it was spoken by approximately 170,000 people, living primarily within a 27,000 square mile reservation spanning parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. The unique linguistic features that baffled Japanese decoders had been evolving for millennia. Navajo is a verb-oriented language where actions are described using complex combinations of prefixes which can reach astronomical numbers. The language employs 4 distinct tones, high, low, rising, and falling, that drastically alter the meaning of words. The slightest inaccuracy in pronunciation could not only change a word's meaning, but render an entire sentence utterly nonsensical. The Navajo language is a complex linguistic system, rich with sounds absent in common languages like Japanese and English. Its phonological arsenal includes ejective consonants, which require air to be expelled from the glottis, as well as a voiceless, lateral, fricative sound, reminiscent of wind whistling through teeth. Japanese speakers, accustomed to a limited set of 5 vowel sounds, faced insurmountable difficulties attempting to accurately perceive Navajo phonemes. Philip Johnston, with his unique understanding of the language's linguistic characteristics, recognized its potential military value. Born in 1892 to a Protestant missionary family working on the Navajo reservation, Johnston was fluent in the language from childhood. He was one of the few non-Navajo individuals who could boast such proficiency. By age 9, he translated his father's sermons, and at 15, he traveled to Washington to serve as an interpreter for Navajo leaders meeting with President Theodore Roosevelt. In December 1941, as America reeled from the tragedy of Pearl Harbor, Johnston learned about the use of Comanche speakers in Army exercises conducted in Louisiana. While there had been prior experience with Choctaw speakers in World War I, those efforts were improvised and limited. Johnston, however, envisioned creating a revolutionary system, an official military code based on the Navajo language that would be both unbreakable and practical for modern warfare. In the crucible of World War II, with the fate of humanity at stake, the search for new unconventional solutions became an urgent necessity. February 28, 1942, marked a momentous day when Philip Johnston presented his innovative idea to Major General Clayton Vogel at Camp Elliott near San Diego. The proposed solution captivated the military with its elegance and efficiency. 4 Navajo representatives who had arrived from Los Angeles demonstrated their unique linguistic abilities by transmitting messages, while Marine officers meticulously timed and compared them with standard protocols. The results were astounding. Transmitting a message in Navajo took only 20 seconds, whereas the M209 cipher machine required a full 30 minutes for the same task. Impressed by what he witnessed, General Vogel immediately approved a pilot program. May 4, 1942 was marked by a solemn ceremony at Fort Wingate, New Mexico, where 29 Navajo recruits swore an oath of allegiance to their country. These young men, among them distinguished individuals like Chester Nez, Carl Gorman, Lloyd Oliver, and John Benally, came from all corners of their native reservation. Their life paths varied. Some had attended boarding schools where the use of their native language was strictly suppressed and punished, while others were hereditary sheep herders who rarely left their lands. At Camp Elliott, they were to spend 8 weeks of intense work under the strictest secrecy. Locked in a guarded building, they were tasked with creating a military code based on their native language. The task was truly monumental, to develop terminology for concepts that did not exist in Navajo, to create a user-friendly alphabetical system, and to ensure it was easy to memorize and capable of future expansion. The contribution of the Navajo Native American code talkers to the Allied victory in World War II is hard to overstate. They created a unique and, as it turned out, unbreakable cipher based on the complex structure and sounds of the Navajo language. In developing the code, they drew upon their people's cultural characteristics. Thus, a submarine was figuratively named Beshlo, ironfish that swims underwater, and a battleship became Lotso, the biggest creature of the ocean. Fighter planes transformed into Dahetihi, hummingbirds that dart in the air, and bombers into Jishu, vultures that circle before diving. The alphabet required particular ingenuity. Several Navajo words were chosen for each letter to prevent frequency analysis, for example. For the letter E, the most common in English, 4 options were used: elk, eye-tear, hair, and ear. The code talkers randomly alternated these options, nullifying any patterns. Initially, 201 terms were developed, which the code talkers memorized. No code books were used, which could have fallen into enemy hands. Chester Nez recalled, "We trained tirelessly. A mistake could cost lives. In our culture, words hold immense power. Correct speech was sacred. The code saw its first combat action in August 1942 on Guadalcanal. 15 code talkers landed with the 1st Marine Division. The Japanese, anticipating the invasion, had already deciphered other Allied messages. However, the Marine Corps' tactical communications suddenly became a complete mystery to them. At the Japanese 8th Fleet headquarters, located in Rabaul, intelligence officers were stumped trying to decipher the enigmatic radio transmissions. Lieutenant Kazuo Yamada, educated at the prestigious Stanford University before the war, reported astonishing findings. These sounds possess a structure characteristic of a language with stable and recurring patterns. However, they cannot be identified with any language known to us, neither English, French, Dutch, Spanish, nor any of the Philippine dialects, nor even Chinese dialects. It is a completely foreign language. The Japanese military reacted with their characteristic methodicalness and persistence. The nation's best cryptanalysts were brought in to solve the problem, meticulously recording hundreds of hours of broadcasts on wax cylinders, applying every available analytical method. In their search for a breakthrough, the Japanese sought help from university linguists and even Buddhist monks, known for their knowledge of ancient languages. But all efforts remained futile. On November 8, 1942, an event occurred that further exacerbated the situation for the Japanese. Code talker Chester Ness transmitted artillery coordinates that led to the destruction of a Japanese machine gun nest. This short 14-second transmission was intercepted by Japanese operators, but it remained a meaningless string of sounds to them. Minutes later, American artillery struck the target precisely. Colonel Haruo Konuma, an intelligence officer of the 17th Army, bitterly stated, "The Americans are using a code that has proven impervious to all our attempts to break it. We are no longer able to anticipate their attacks. We are fighting blind." In April 1942, when Bataan fell, a Navajo soldier named Joe Kiyumiya was captured by the Japanese, destined to become the Japanese's last hope in their quest to break the elusive code. Despite being fluent in his native language, Kiyumiya was unfamiliar with the secret military code developed by his countrymen. When Japanese cryptographers began intercepting mysterious Navajo messages, Kiyumiya was brought to the Auna interrogation center. There, he was made to listen to recordings of code talker conversations, but instead of meaningful phrases, he heard only incoherent combinations of words. Turtle attacks iron fish. Hummingbirds lay eggs. Kiyumiya's inability to translate these enigmatic messages enraged his interrogators, who accused him of lying. For long months, the torture grew increasingly brutal and sophisticated, waterboarding, savage beatings, hanging by the hands for long hours. In the winter of 1943, he was forced to stand naked in the freezing snow until his feet froze to the ground. Starvation drove him to exhaustion, his weight dropping to a critical 40 kilograms, and food was offered in exchange for translating the coveted messages. Despite the inhuman suffering, Kiyumiya could only repeat the same truth. He understood individual words, but not their secret military meaning. A Japanese intelligence report from May 1943 recorded their frustration. The prisoner is evidently a speaker of the mysterious language, but cannot understand the transmitted messages. Probable causes, either extreme resistance or the enemy uses a specialized code within the native language requiring special training. The second version proved correct. Even those fluent in Navajo could not understand the secret code without special training. Keyumia's tragic experience of 3.5 years in captivity was a severe ordeal. His inability to assist only strengthened Japanese intelligence's belief that they had encountered something truly extraordinary. By the end of 1943, the Japanese had virtually abandoned hope of deciphering messages transmitted in the Navajo language, admitting their defeat in this linguistic confrontation. The triumph at Guadalcanal served as a powerful impetus for the program's further development. Major General Alexander van der Grift, admiring the efficiency of the new cryptographers, emphasized, "The Navajo communicators were an invaluable asset. Their transmission speed surpasses any coding device, and their security is absolute." A specialized school was established at Camp Pendleton, training new specialists every 8 weeks. By the war's end, there were between 375 and 420 Navajo code talkers serving in all 6 Marine divisions. The training process for these unique soldiers was unprecedented in Marine Corps history. Recruits honed their skills in soundproof booths, where instructors simulated the roar and noise of real battle. They transmitted messages while wearing gas masks and ran to complete exhaustion, testing their physical and moral limits. Thomas H. Begay, who enlisted at age 15, recalled, "They pushed us beyond limits. We understood that our accuracy meant lives." The Navajo code talkers' language was constantly evolving and expanding. The emergence of new technologies and realities necessitated a corresponding enlargement of their vocabulary. Thus, the atomic bomb was given the code name Ayash, meaning metal egg, and kamikaze pilots became known as Neti, or wind of death. Each innovation was logical and understandable to native Navajo speakers, but utterly meaningless to everyone else. By midsummer 1943, Japanese intelligence, realizing the importance of the intercepted messages, dedicated significant forces and resources to cracking the code. The Imperial Navy's 4th Department assigned 30 experienced cryptanalysts whose sole task was to analyze these transmissions. Captain Yoshiro Tanaka, who led the group, employed the most modern and unconventional methods. Specifically, he used musical analysis to identify tonal features, compared recordings with samples of Native American speech, and consulted with scientists educated in the United States. Japanese specialists developed unique recording equipment that allowed them to slow down message transmission speed without distorting the pitch. They created visual representations of sound waves using oscilloscopes and applied statistical analysis methods to study frequencies and patterns in the sound. Commander Lieutenant Masao Yamada later noted that Japanese cryptanalysts managed to identify some recurring patterns, determine probable call signs, and establish a link between message length and operation complexity. However, without the ability to understand the meaning of individual words, all these achievements had minimal practical value. The Japanese command ordered its troops to capture Marine code talkers alive. A reward of 10,000 yen, equivalent to 10 years' salary, was announced for the capture of equipment or materials used by the code talkers. Despite several instances where Japanese forces came close to success, no code talker was captured with their equipment intact. The Pacific Campaign, in the very heart of the ocean, vividly demonstrated how indispensable the code talkers were to military strategy. In November 1943, during the fierce fighting for Tarawa, Just 6 of these specialists maintained round-the-clock communication for 76 hours. Lloyd Oliver tirelessly transmitted vital messages without a break for 2 days, coordinating naval artillery fire despite continuous enemy shelling. During the Mariana Islands campaign on Saipan, 24 code talkers worked non-stop, day and night without sleep. Lieutenant Commander Takashi Furukawa, by deciphering conventional messages, managed to foresee the impending invasion. However, as soon as the Marines landed, tactical intelligence seemed to vanish into thin air. Colonel Takashi Saito bitterly noted that commanders felt abandoned, deprived of the crucial intelligence they had grown accustomed to relying on. On Peleliu, code talker Jimmy King, displaying immense courage, transmitted messages for 6 hours during a counter-attack after his partner fell to an enemy bullet. Under heavy enemy fire, he coordinated artillery fire for 3 battalions, transmitting approximately 40 messages without a single error. The Battle of Iwo Jima went down in history as a triumph for the code talkers, whose skills proved invaluable in achieving victory. Major Howard Connor took charge of coordinating the initial phase of the assault, relying on the unique Navajo code. 6 code talkers, working in coordinated teams, ensured uninterrupted communication throughout the first 2 days of the invasion, when the situation was most tense. General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, commander of the Japanese garrison, had meticulously prepared the island's defense for 2 years, creating an extensive network of underground fortifications totaling 18 kilometers in length. His strategic objective was to intercept American radio messages to organize surprise counterattacks. However, this plan was not destined to materialize. In the first 48 hours of the battle, 6 code talkers transmitted and received over 800 messages without a single error. They coordinated the landing of 30,000 Marines, adjusted naval artillery fire supported by 100 ships, provided close air support, relayed enemy positions, organized medical evacuations, supplies, and tactical orders, all under continuous enemy fire. As Major Connor later recalled, without the Navajo contribution, the Marines would likely not have taken Iwo Jima. During the first 2 days of the operation, he utilized 6 Navajo radio networks operating 24/7. Thanks to their efforts, over 800 messages were transmitted and received with not a single error. In fact, the entire operation to capture Iwo Jima was managed using the Navajo code, which became a decisive factor in the success of the American forces. During the fierce battles in the Pacific, Japanese forces faced an insurmountable obstacle in the form of the American code based on the Navajo language. Colonel Shigeo Hayashi reported to General Kuribayashi on the futility of attempts to break American ciphers. Thanks to the use of Navajo, requests for artillery support were fulfilled in just 20 seconds, whereas conventional methods took about half an hour. This time, difference often became decisive between the success and failure of an operation. On Okinawa, 35 Navajo code talkers coordinated a large-scale offensive involving 183,000 servicemen over 82 days. Despite all Japanese efforts, attempts to jam or imitate Navajo voices proved futile, as they could not reproduce the unique tonal characteristics of the language. According to code talker Alfred Newman, Lieutenant Hiroshi Miyamoto's attempts to imitate Navajo sounded ridiculous, resembling gurgling more than articulate speech. On August 14, 1945, code talker Teddy Draper transmitted a historic message signaling the end of the war. Nehema Ediyini Adenil, Japan's surrender. This message, relayed through Navajo communication channels and then via conventional means, marked a fitting culmination to the Code Talkers saga. Following the cessation of hostilities, American investigators uncovered the extent of Japanese efforts to break the Navajo Code and confirm their complete failure. Lieutenant General Shizo Arisu, head of Japanese intelligence, admitted they never managed to crack the Marine Corps Code, unlike those used by the Army, Air Force, and for diplomatic correspondence. Captain Yasuji Kawamoto was even more emphatic, stating that thousands of intercepted messages were meticulously studied by the top linguists for 3 years, yet all efforts proved futile. He called it the greatest failure of the Japanese cryptanalytic service. In 1944, Japanese analysts noted tonal characteristics suggesting an indigenous origin for the language and sought assistance from German specialists. However, wartime difficulties and the Germans' lack of expertise prevented any success. Colonel Masao Yamada acknowledged that the inability to decipher marine messages cost the Japanese thousands of lives, as every marine operation after 1942 remained a mystery until its very inception. Major Hiroshi Tanaka, a veteran of the Battle of Iwo Jima, recalled the demoralizing effect of the unfamiliar speech. We didn't understand a single word. It made us feel backward, as if defeat was predetermined even before the battle began. The end of the war did not bring immediate relief to the Code Talkers. Their program remained classified, viewed as a potential tool for the impending Cold War. Upon returning home, they were unable to share their experiences with anyone. They came back to states where, until 1948 in New Mexico and Arizona, and until 1957 in Utah, they were denied voting rights. They frequently faced discrimination, being refused service in hotels and restaurants. These heroes, whose deeds could not be recognized, carried a heavy burden of silence. Chester Nez, the last of the original 29 Code Talkers, who passed away in 2014, wrote, "We were warriors who contributed to victory, but we couldn't tell anyone about it. It was a heavy burden." Many found solace in traditional ceremonies, such as the Enemy Way rite, which helped cleanse warriors of the spiritual defilement brought by war. Dan Urquijo explained, "We used our language to direct death. Now we needed it for healing. The ceremonies reminded us of the sacred nature of our language." In 1968, the program was declassified. The first public recognition came in 1969 at a reunion of the 4th Marine Division veterans. President Reagan officially proclaimed August 14, 1982 as National Navajo Code Talkers Day. The highest honor was bestowed on July 26, 2001, when President Bush awarded the original 29 Code Talkers Congressional Gold Medals in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. By then, only 5 of them were still alive. President Bush declared, "Today we honor 29 Native Americans who gave their country invaluable service that no one else could provide." Chester Nez in turn remarked, "We were ordinary people entrusted with an extraordinary task. We used our sacred language to contribute to victory. During fierce battles, when the fate of the nation hung in the balance, Native American tribes proved themselves not only as warriors, but also as ingenious linguists, creating a unique and unbreakable code known as the Wind Talkers. While the Navajo Nation is most renowned for its contributions in this field, 14 other tribes also provided their sons for this critical mission. The Choctaw were pioneers in using indigenous languages for military purposes, employing this concept as early as World War I. In World War II, 17 Comanche code talkers served in the European theater of operations, participating in the D-Day landings. The Hopi, Cherokee, Lakota, and other tribes also made invaluable contributions, utilizing the richness and diversity of their languages. In recognition of their service, the Code Talkers Recognition Act was passed in 2008, honoring all the tribes involved in this secret operation. John Brown Jr., one of the veterans, recalled, "They told us our language was no good for anything, and then it turned out they needed it to win the war." This code became a vivid testament to the sophistication and expressiveness of Native American languages. Navajo code talkers, demonstrating exceptional linguistic abilities, modernized their language in real time, creating new grammatical structures and adapting metaphors for military needs. The agglutinative nature of their language allowed complex ideas to be conveyed in a single word. What required entire paragraphs in English could be communicated in brief, concise phrases in Navajo. Dr. William Morgan, a researcher of indigenous languages, emphasized, "They proved that native languages are by no means primitive. They showed that absolutely everything could be expressed in Navajo, from religious ceremonies to the intricacies of military strategy." The contribution of the Navajo Wind Talkers to the Allied victory in World War II cannot be overstated. Their unique code, based on the linguistic characteristics of the Navajo language, became an insurmountable barrier for Japanese cryptanalysts. This encryption method, relying on cultural and linguistic nuances, proved more reliable than the most complex mathematical algorithms of the time, and significantly influenced intelligence operations in the post-war period. The relevance of the Navajo code persists even today, particularly in light of the development of quantum computing, which poses a threat to the traditional methods of mathematical encryption. Colonel David Hatch, in evaluating the Navajo contribution, underscored the uniqueness of their achievement, noting that the code remained unbroken and uncompromised throughout the war, proving the superiority of human linguistic capabilities over mechanical encryption. After the war, Japanese scholars conducted a thorough analysis of the reasons for their failure. Professor Tadao Yoshikawa reported that 30 cryptanalysts worked on deciphering the Navajo code for 2 years, with consultants brought in from several universities. Captain Minoru Yamada noted that by late 1943, the Japanese were aware that the code was based on a Native American language, but they were never able to identify the specific language. Lieutenant Commander Shigeru Fukumoto admitted that the use of a native language was such a simple and elegant solution that Japanese specialists simply did not consider it. In the 1990s, photographer Kenji Kawano, driven by a desire to preserve the memory of these heroes, created a series of documentary works dedicated to the surviving code talkers. His exhibitions in Tokyo and Hiroshima were a revelation for the Japanese public, introducing them to a previously unknown page of history. Albert Smith, one of the code talkers, addressed the Japanese audience with words full of reconciliation. "We were both warriors fighting for our countries. My language, Navajo, played a part in your failure, but now it serves as a bridge for understanding between us." In 2010, Admiral Hiroaki Abe, speaking at a symposium of the Japan Intelligence Research Association, acknowledged, The Navajo code proved to be an impregnable bastion, a perfect encryption. Despite having Asia's best decryptors at our disposal, we suffered a complete defeat. Chester Nez, the last of the original 29 code talkers who pioneered this unique unit, passed away on June 4, 2014, leaving behind a rich legacy. Today, only 2 of the approximately 400 code talkers who served in the US military remain alive: Thomas H. Begay and Peter MacDonald, who was not part of the original group of 29 but played a significant role in ensuring the code's operational success. Peter MacDonald, despite his venerable age of 96, continues to speak publicly, conveying a message about the strength of unity and diversity. We proved that America's power lies in its diversity. Our different languages and cultures only make us stronger. The Navajo language, once subjected to persecution and attempts at eradication, is now recognized as a strategically vital asset. Federal authorities allocate significant funds to support it, citing the heroic history of the code talkers, whose exploits during World War II are forever etched into the annals of military history. A younger generation of Native Americans is now turning with renewed pride to the study of their ancestral languages, seeing them not only as part of their cultural heritage, but also as a powerful tool for self-identification and revitalization. Dr. Jennifer Dennett-Dale, a prominent scholar in linguistics and Native American history, emphasizes the code talkers fundamentally changed the perception of Native Americans, both by themselves and by American society as a whole. They convincingly demonstrated that our languages are not merely museum exhibits gathering dust, but living, dynamically evolving resources capable of solving the most complex challenges. The Navajo code talkers accomplished a truly outstanding feat in military history, creating a unique and utterly unbreakable code that remained an insurmountable obstacle for Japanese intelligence throughout World War II. Between 375 and 420 Navajo Marines, risking their lives, transmitted tens of thousands of messages without a single error in the fiercest combat conditions. However, their contribution extends far beyond tactical advantages. They became a symbol of resilience, ingenuity, and patriotism. Native Americans used their ancestral language, which the government once sought to eradicate, to protect their country. Young people from marginalized communities demonstrated capabilities that even the most sophisticated allies found unattainable. Their story is a vivid testament that a nation's true strength lies in unity, diversity, and respect for its roots. The Japanese military campaign collapsed not only due to tactical miscalculations, but also because of a profound misunderstanding of their adversary. The strategists of the land of the rising sun prepared to counter American technology and code decryption, but were unprepared to confront the diversity of American society, its languages and cultures, to which they had no access. An empire that built its ideology on racial superiority was defeated in part by this very diversity. Lieutenant General Arisui admitted that Japanese forces never managed to break the code used by the Marines, which signifies an encounter with an enemy whose strength lay in aspects incomprehensible to them. The code talkers embodied an America that Japanese ideology could not accept. They vividly demonstrated that America's true power lies not only in its industrial capacity, but also in its human diversity. Linguistic diversity became a strategic advantage. The Navajo language, once targeted for eradication in boarding schools, became the key to victories in the Pacific. Petrin. And today, as the last code talkers pass into history, their legacy continues to live on. The language that was once forbidden is now taught with pride. Native American veterans are receiving well-deserved recognition for their service, in which they demonstrated the highest per capita results. The recognition of diversity's importance for strengthening security has become a widely accepted viewpoint. The history of using the Navajo language as an unbreakable code during the Pacific Campaign is a vivid testament to this. The power of the United States lies in the unique combination of various peoples and languages, united by a common purpose, yet enriched by their differences. This unbreakable code serves as proof that differences are not vulnerabilities, but valuable assets that must be cherished, preserved, and utilized to protect freedom. Japanese intelligence officers, confronted with the impossibility of deciphering the Navajo code, fully grasped the significance of this fact. Their defeat became an acknowledgement of a truth extending beyond military tactics. The uniqueness of this code lay not in mathematical complexity, but in the inexhaustible complexity of human cultures. The warrior code talkers transmitted messages that Japanese intelligence was never able to understand. However, their main message was universal. Diversity generates strength, and culture is a source of power. Indigenous knowledge can be successfully applied for modern purposes. The young people of the Navajo Nation, who used their sacred language as a weapon during the war and then as a tool for peace, forever proved that America's greatest cipher is its diversity, unbreakable due to the countless manifestations of human experience and wisdom. An unbreakable genetic code, like Ariadne's thread, permeates generations of indigenous peoples, pulsating in the heart of every child who utters words in their ancestors' language. This code is reflected in the recognition of the invaluable contribution of ethnic minorities, enriching society's cultural tapestry, and in the understanding that diversity of opinions and traditions serves as the foundation for unity and progress. Masters of deciphering human souls convincingly demonstrate that our individual characteristics and differences are not obstacles, but valuable assets that must be carefully preserved and nurtured. This serves as an eternal reminder that the harmonious combination of countless voices, cultures, and languages in all their diversity forms the very unshakable code of freedom that humanity strives for.